start working in the next few minutes. So
here today, I just wanted to thank Chris especially for having time in his day, making time in his day for doing this. This is the HR topics for COVID-19, and I'm happy to introduce Chris Cluff, who's the president of Paper Trails. It's our payroll company, is a member of the chamber. He also shared some great tips, if you haven't seen them yet, in our chamber newsletter today. So just some housekeeping. I'm going to mute all once we get going. If you are not muted right now, if you could mute yourself, your microphone, that would be terrific. And if you have questions, I'm going to ask you to put them in the chat feature. Just type them right in there. Be happy to share them with Chris at the end. And if anyone wants to come on at the end and get some questions, that would be great. So thank you, and take it away, Chris.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully we can give you a few ideas to take back to the office and keep business as usual, you know, in these rather unusual times. So my team and I have been working, you know, pretty crazily over the last few weeks. We've been drinking through the fire hose, or we've been, you know, using our umbrella in the hurricane, as Dr. Shaw said, trying to figure out, you know, what's going on with all the changes. Law changes and you know, status changes and businesses opening and closing and everything in between. And it's definitely been a challenge for us, but we've been working feverishly to make sure that our clients are well taken care of. So today we're going to talk about a number of different HR topics and you know, touch on a few different issues. But Laura, can you guys hear me all right? All right, so the first thing that I just want to kind of talk about from an HR perspective is, you know, go back to basics with your HR topics. You know, don't throw the policy book out the window. Don't put, you know, throw, you know, everything you do on a normal basis out the window just because there's a pandemic. All rules still apply. You know, some laws have been relaxed, but I can guarantee you, if you're mistreating your employees, you're not doing things above board, you're going to get, you know, gigged on it, and, you know, Department of Labor will be on your doorstep before you know it, or you're opening yourselves up to other liabilities. You know, so don't throw the policy book out the window. You know, be consistent with what you are, how you're handling HR issues. You know, remember that your employees are still human. You know, we're all going through this together. We all have, you know, families and grandparents and parents, and maybe we're taking home care of our kids at home. You know, maybe the dog hasn't been to doggy daycare in 2 weeks and they're climbing the walls. So we don't know what's going on at home with everybody, but, you know, remember that your employees are human. Continue to treat them just like you'd want to be treated. You know, continue to be consistent with your policies. Don't throw those out the window. You know, if you have vacation policies, if you have sick policies, those all still apply. All other, you know, employment rules still apply. Make sure you're not discriminating against an individual or any group of people when you are when you're going through any HR issues. You know, that's going to throw in some red flags and make sure that, you know, could cause issues down the road. You know, we're going to talk about this consistency thing as we go about the presentation today, but, you know, make sure you're consistent, because that's what's going to get you into trouble potentially. Just a reminder, Maine is an at-will state unless you have an employment contract with an employee. You know, employees can be hired and fired at will. Obviously, you know, you want to be compassionate, make sure we're dealing with, you know, things as you always would. But there are no laws that, you know, prevent you from, you know, hiring or terminating employees for any reason, as long as you're doing it, you know, lawfully, non-discriminatory, and so forth. So, and just a reminder, like I said already, labor laws still apply. You know, they haven't thrown the rule books completely out the window, just as you shouldn't. So make sure you're consistent with all that. We're seeing a lot of folks who are reducing their workforce or stopping they're operating their businesses because either the government has told them to shut down or business is reduced significantly so that they can't work. You know, the big thing with this is always communicate with your staff. Like we said before, they're human. They've got a lot going on. They have stress, on their hands, just like you have on your hands. Make sure you're open and honest with your team. They need to know what's going on just about as quickly as you know what you're going to do. It's not always easy. It's certainly not fun, but make sure you're talking with them and being consistent with the message that you're giving to your employees. If you are going to make reductions in your workforce, again, be consistent. So if you're saying, we're laying off all of this category of employee, that's fine, but don't single an individual out, particularly if they're of certain classes. So be careful with that. Just a general business topic, be sure to communicate with your vendors. Your vendors are expecting you to pay them or to order from them. Let them know what's going on. Call your bank, call your suppliers, who do you work with, and tell them what to expect during this time. If you're closing your business, when do you think you're going to reopen it? A lot of us don't know. If you owe them a lot of money, when do you think you're going to be able to repay them? You may not know that either, but I can tell you when it comes time for them to do collections, I think most of these vendors are going to be a lot more sympathetic of someone that's reached out to them and said, hey, I know I owe you money. Here's, what my plan is when we get reopened to pay you. I think, most vendors are being pretty consistent in that they're being flexible. I have not heard of anybody, sending demand letters or things like that to clients at this point because they can't pay their bills. Obviously it is what it is. Everyone's in a little bit of a holding pattern, but communicate, be open and honest, not just with your employees, but your vendors. If you are going to lay folks off or, have a reduction in your workforce, you can furlough them or lay them off to allow them to collect unemployment. We're going to talk in just a second about, employees that may not feel comfortable working, but, if you're going to lay everybody off, that's one decision you can make. That will allow them to apply for unemployment, which at this point is certainly a strong option for them. We're hearing a lot of nightmares about unemployment. We'll talk about those in a minute, but it's an option. If you choose to continue to pay your employees, you can follow your continue to pay them using PTO. You can pay them out of the goodness of your heart if you would like. There are provisions also of the new CARES Act for an employee retention credit, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well. So just a couple of options in there as well. You certainly can maintain certain individuals. If you want to keep your management team intact or something like that, you can do that as well. I want to show you, we've got a letter that what we'll do, you'll see a couple of templates that we're going to have, we're going to go over today. And in those letters, we will, we'll send those out. I'll have Laura send them out at the end of the meeting so you can use them. This is a letter of temporary layoff that you can use. It's a template. You just fill your information in, make adjustments as you see fit, and you can use this as a letter. With it, as with any HR topics, you want to make sure that you're communicating and communicating in writing because, in 6 months when someone says, I was unfairly treated, you want to be able to have the documentation to prove, what you did and how you did it. It's certainly a lot easier to defend yourself when it's in writing. So we'll get this letter template sent out as well at the end of the meeting. Basically says, hey, this is our plan. This is what we're thinking we're going to do. We're allowing you to go apply for unemployment. We're not going to stand in your way and so forth. So make sure if you are reducing your workforce that you pay your employees for all the time that they earned. If they worked for you, and the pay period ended on, Friday, for example, and your payday was the next Friday, make sure you pay them for those hours that they worked. If you do not pay them, your employees are going to call the Department of Labor, say they didn't get paid, and it will not be fun for you. I know that there are a lot of folks out there that are having financial issues, but if you do have to hold pay for any reason, again, be sure to communicate that with your employees, why you may not be able to pay them, and again, what your plan is to pay them. Make sure you have that available. When your employees get laid off, potentially, they're going to ask, hey, could I use my vacation time to get paid? That is up to you. But again, make sure you follow your existing policies. So if you are going to lay everybody off in your letter that you're going to send them, hopefully, make sure you say, we are not allowing you to use PTO during this time. That's just how it is. Or if you are, allow them to do that. It's just important to be consistent. Again, you have the flexibility to determine what you want. For those of you that maintain employee benefits for health insurance or dental insurance, retirement, there have been a lot of changes to retirement rules in the last round of laws, particularly around withdrawals, but you should be consistent, again, in any furloughs of retirement benefits or health benefits. We're seeing a lot of health carriers in particular allow you to continue to have benefits given to you as long as you're paying the premiums. So as long as the employer is paying the premiums, the policy will be in effect. Most health insurance policies, for example, require that your employees who are on the policy and are covered be actually on payroll. Well, in this situation, they can't be on payroll because you laid them off. Anthem, we've heard of Anthem, we've heard of Aetna, and a couple other of these folks that have issued statements saying, we're not going to cancel your health insurance benefits as long as you continue to pay the premiums if these people are laid off. So that's huge. You should definitely check with your benefits agent or your insurance company to make sure that you're covered on that. I know I get a notice from my benefits agent, a couple weeks ago, and she said, yep, you're all set. We've not fortunately laid anybody off, but if I do have to do that, as long as I pay the premiums, their benefits will still be covered. If you don't believe you can continue to pay the premiums, again, talk to your benefits agent or the insurance company to put a plan in place of when you can start and stop this. As you know, benefits are not fun, but if you can stay ahead of it, that's certainly going to be beneficial to you in the long run. The last thing you want is for your benefits carrier to cancel your policy, and then you have to wait up maybe potentially a whole another year to renew or apply for a new policy. So don't, bury your head in the sand. Take care of these things. Some insurance carriers we have heard have talked about premium holidays, where they're willing to waive a month or two of premiums. But again, check with your insurance company to see what those options are. If you can pay your premiums, please pay your premiums, because they're going to need those premiums to pay out when your employees have to go to the doctor because they're sick, potentially because of pandemic. So make sure that you are communicating with your insurance companies. Again, be consistent with everything you're implementing and communicating. ERISA is a big bad law that governs benefits and retirements and all those fun things. It's tens of thousands of pages, and there's a lot of ins and outs in there. But communicate with your benefits provider, communicate with your insurance providers, your retirement carriers, all those folks. See what they're giving you for guidance. Don't, again, do not bury your head in the sand. I know it's a stressful time, but it's going to be a real mess if you have to come back and pick up the pieces. If your business is considered essential, we've seen the governor give us substantial guidance on what's essential and what's non-essential. I feel like, the first round of essential versus non-essential we got seemed a little crazy, but I think they've leveled that off. The very first thing, if your business is considered essential, like mine is, we're a payroll company, people still need to get paid. The first thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're accommodating your employees' safety. That's the first priority, we should be doing in our businesses anyway, but especially during these times, we have a lot of employees who are, scared of what's going to happen or getting sick. We want to make sure we're taking care of that. In my business, I have about half my team working from home. Half of us are still in the office providing, continuity services that we can't do from home or would be more difficult to do from home. But the folks that are still in the office, we're still following social distancing. It's very limited. We're not accepting any visits from clients or visitors and so forth. If you're a landscaper or a construction person, you're working outside, make sure you're, again, following the same guidance that we've gotten from CDC, social distancing, make sure you're covering your mouths, all those types of things. Again, be sure to take care of your employees. If they feel that you're supporting them, they're more likely to stick with you and for the longer and hopefully continue to maintain some sort of normalcy in your business. Unfortunately, for some employees, for some employers, you may have employees who just don't feel comfortable coming to work. In most situations, employees really don't have a right to opt out of an attendance requirement unless there's some sort of objective reason, unless you're truly putting them in harm's way. They don't have a reason that they shouldn't be coming to work. We know that this is a hard topic because there are a lot of folks that have been told by a doctor or, have immune system issues to begin with. People are trying to protect themselves. I urge you to be compassionate as you're dealing with these employees and try to understand their situations. Certainly, we all have folks that that may not be able to come to work for whatever reason. And with that, sometimes the best thing you can do for them is to say, yep, I will grant you a temporary layoff and allow you to go apply for unemployment. Again, that's up to your discretion, but please be consistent in however you're doing that. If one person requests it, make sure you do it for the other person as well. If employees are still not comfortable, we just talked about that, the option would be to give them a temporary layoff. At some point, we do expect unemployment to do some auditing. I mean, they are drinking through the fire hose as well, but we think at some point we're going to be getting some auditing where they're going to ask for wages and dates and so forth of when they were laid off, when they were terminated, etc. Technically, to apply for unemployment, you will have to have laid them off. If they quit or abandon their job, typically they're not eligible for unemployment. Keep in mind, if this audit does happen, if they do come through and ask you why they left your employment, if you say they quit, they're probably going to have their unemployment benefits clawed back. There are a lot of changes to unemployment right now, so I'm not sure how strict they will be with these. But again, I would be consistent and remember, have compassion for folks, especially during these crazy times. We've seen a lot of businesses apply for essential status from the state. Department of Labor is giving out essential status letters for folks. Fortunately, I think we live in Maine and we haven't seen a real strong arm of the law come down on our employees or our essential businesses to say, why aren't you staying at home? I think for the most part, people are being very conscious of the governor's stay-at-home order, and police are not having to stop folks and ask them why they're out and about. If you feel it necessary, you're welcome to call the Department of Labor and request an essential business designation. It's a letter that they're writing to you that just says, hey, congratulations, you're essential. You do not apply, you and your employees do not apply to the stay-at-home order. You can give that letter to your employees. You can also give your employees this essential business letter template that we are going to give you at the end of this, which allows them to carry that around with them on the job site or on their way to and from work. Hopefully, in case they do run into someone that is not so friendly, they can show this to kind of get off the hook. So you get out of jail free card, I guess. Working from home is new for a lot of us. We've maybe have dabbled in it a little bit, but most employers have not, especially small businesses, have really not put in place formal working from home or telecommuting policies. It's certainly something that we've all figured out really quick. It's new to all of us. It's new to our employees. So I think it behooves of all of us to be a little patient as we're working with these employees. Employees are trying to figure out the best way to work from home, especially if they're home taking care of their kids, trying to teach them, the new math, Common Core math or whatever. It's all changed. So it's important to make sure you're flexible with those employees. One of the things we've seen a lot of folks doing is creating work plans for their employees. These are my expectations of the things that you are going to do while you're working from home. I think it's safe to say, given these crazy times, that productivity and performance may not be at 100% if folks are working from home. On the other hand, we certainly have seen a lot of folks that, because there's fewer distractions, are accomplishing a lot more. And it's all based on individuals. Some people are able to work from home, some people aren't. But in these times, it's important to make sure that we're putting a plan in place with our employees, making sure work's getting completed, clients are being taken care of, our constituencies are being taken care of as well. People are performing. It's important to continue to communication with your staff. I mean, basically for me, I'm doing a check-in once a day with each of my staff who are working from home. What do you need from me? Are there things you need at the office? Can we scan things for you, print things for you? It's kind of all hands on deck. Folks that are in the office are printing things and sending things out in the mail for people that are working from home and so forth. So it's important to make sure that we're communicating. Fortunately, technology is better than it's ever been, and I think it's been easier for a lot of us to make the transition home, but we certainly have put our business continuity plans to the test. For me, we have great voice over IP phones that pretty much you can plug in China and you'll think you're just sitting in the office. What we missed in our planning is we didn't have the power cords for them. We used power over Ethernet, and I didn't have electricity to power our phones. So I sent 4 employees home with their phones, and I said, this is going to be great. It's going to be just like you're sitting in the office. And they couldn't answer the phone because they didn't have electricity to their phones. So it cost me $197 on Amazon to order power cords for them and get those overnighted to everybody. So we definitely have been learning things in this process. But it's, it's certainly a good thing to be writing down notes of, what worked, what didn't work, and make sure that we are taking care of that going forward. Even silly little things like, we all have desktop computers. Well, today a laptop is just as inexpensive as a desktop, and we've been scurrying to try to find laptops for folks that may not have laptops at home. Can I borrow your laptop? Can I borrow your laptop? Those are issues as well. Not everyone has a computer at home anymore now that we have cell phones and iPads. So using those kind of things, have become a challenge. One of my vendors actually has introduced a work-at-home kit where they'll give you a laptop and a printer for you to take home and work from home kind of thing. The business leases it out for a certain period of time. I'm not taking advantage of that, but there certainly are folks out there that are putting those packages together for people. But definitely, think about the technology. Also think about information security. In my business, we're dealing with a lot of confidential information. Fortunately, we have VPNs, we have, security and firewalls in place that our employees are logging into our server here before they're transmitting client data. Not every industry is like that, but always you want to make sure that you're thinking about your information security as people are working from their computers at home potentially. If they're working on a personal device, what potentially sensitive information is there that needs to be, secured? So lots of good things to think about as we're moving forward. The last piece I'll just say is you may want to consider as part of this policy, creating a teleworking or a work from home policy. In addition to your work plans, you may want to put an official policy in your handbook that says this is what we do, this is how we work, this is where we're headed, and this is what we expect of you when you're working at home. I would imagine, given how well I think things in general have worked with people working from home, I'm thinking we're probably going to see fewer offices in the future. I think you're going to see a lot more people actually working from home. The technology is at a point where it's pretty good and we're able to do that. So these policies are going to be more and more important every single day. I'm going to give you a template, a work from home agreement for you to work through with your employees. It's certainly something that you can take now, make any adjustments you feel fit. Again, we'll get that out in the package at the end of the presentation. So unemployment. So I just had to update this slide this morning as the state released its newest numbers. We've seen 76,000 plus employees claim for unemployment in the first 3 weeks of this pandemic. So that's a huge number. It's more than we've ever seen before. It was more